I think this is a one-off hit, which Israeli intelligence will have been working on. They're just working through a list of people, and wherever they can locate them, then they go after them more or less automatically, as we saw on the 1st of April when they went after a whole series of IRGC generals in the consulate in Damascus.
Now, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Number 10 said he reiterated the UK's steadfast support for Israel's security and for wider regional stability after what he called Iran's reckless and dangerous attack on Israel on Saturday. As Netanyahu's war cabinet considers how to respond, Rishi Sunak said significant escalation was in no one's interest, and this was a moment for calm heads to prevail. Well, earlier, General Herzi Halevi, Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Force, talked about how Israel might respond.
Over 350 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, armed drones and rockets were fired from Iranian soil, as well as Iraq, Yemen and Lebanon, towards the State of Israel. Across the skies of the Middle East, a coalition was activated to counter this attack, marking the start of the IDF's Operation Iron Shield.
Well, Israel says today that it has killed a senior Hezbollah military commander in southeast Lebanon. I spoke earlier to Michael Clarke, former Director General of RUSI and Professor of Defence Studies at King's College London. And I began by asking about the significance of this latest Israeli strike on Hezbollah.
I think this is a one-off hit, which Israeli intelligence will have been working on. They're just working through a list of people, and wherever they can locate them, then they go after them more or less automatically, as we saw on the 1st of April when they went after a whole series of IRGC generals in the consulate in Damascus, which was a very foolish thing to do. And I don't actually think that was as well thought through as it should have been, because it was left-hand, right-hand problem of the IDF not knowing that the intelligence services were going to do it. And I think
Sorry, just to pick you up on that, Michael, this was the presumed Israeli attack on an Iranian consulate in Syria. But what you're saying is that there were IRGC, Iran Revolutionary Guard personnel in that building.
Correct. And it was getting them that was the major objective, because they're just working through lists of people that they can get them when they can. And in this case, I'm fairly sure, I don't know any more about it than has been in the public domain in the last few hours, but in this case of a Hezbollah figure in Lebanon, they will have done the same, where they see these characters, where they think they can isolate the vehicle that they're in or the building that they're in, they go after them.
Now, this comes as Rishi Sunak has been speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's again called for calm heads to prevail as Israel weighs how to respond to that Iranian attack on its territory at the weekend. Do you think Israel is in the mood to listen to those kind of warnings?
I think it is more than it was maybe 24 or 36 hours ago, because Rishi Sunak, as I understand it, is actually giving the same message to Netanyahu as President Biden is giving to him, which is to say, you've had a win, a military win over the weekend in preventing anything other than very minor damage from this very big attack from Iranian drones and missiles. Take the win, don't waste it, and use it politically. And so, I mean, what I'm sure the Prime Minister was saying is take forward the political advantages of building a broader coalition against Iran, rather than hitting back against Iran and isolating yourself again, particularly if civilians are killed in hitting Iran or hitting Iranian interests in some other way. So rather, as David Cameron has been saying, be strong, but be smart. Don't just hit back. And that's the message. Whether Israel will get that message, I don't know. I suspect not. But Netanyahu is caught between, relative hawks and relative doves. And the doves are saying, giving him that same message, let's be smart. And the hawks are saying, unless we hit back really hard, we cannot reestablish deterrence, because the attacks that the Iranians launched against us on Saturday proves they're not frightened of us anymore. We've got to restore their fear of us in order to maintain deterrence. And Netanyahu, who hasn't said anything in public about any of this, is caught in the middle of all of these competing ideas about Israel's best interests going forward.
And are there risks in this message going out from President Biden, from Rishi Sunak, saying directly to Israel, oh, let's show restraint in the face of this attack by hundreds of drones and missiles by Iran on Israeli territory, saying, well, let's not hit back too hard? Aren't there dangers in sending that message to Iran that it can carry out this sort of action effectively with impunity?
Yes, I mean, there's no risk-free policy at all in this case. If you do nothing, that is a risk. If you do too much, that is a risk. If you hit it somewhere in the middle, if you actually think of the decision as somewhere in the middle, whereby there is some sort of response, preferably more political than military, then maybe we can close this chapter, which began on the 1st of April with the Israeli attack in Damascus. Everybody wants to say, look, honors are even. You attacked the consulate in Damascus. That was illegal. You shouldn't have done it, but you did. The Iranians should not have launched an attack on you. They shouldn't have done it, but they did. Honors are now even. Let's dial all this down. But every policy you can think of has got attendant risks. There's no risk-free options here for anybody because we're in very dangerous waters now in the Middle East.
What about this pressure on Rishi Sunak to take a much tougher stance against Iran in terms of what's happening here in the UK? For example, proscribing the IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, making it illegal to have anything to do with or to support that organisation. And indeed, we had Sir Liam Fox, former Defence Secretary, on this programme last night saying, let's have a crackdown on Iranian banks as well.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a very good case for toughening a lot of sanctions against Iran. I mean, sanctions were lessened with the nuclear deal that was done in 2015 in an attempt to draw Iran back into the mainstream of world politics. But that didn't work. I mean, Trump wrecked it when he was president. He wrecked the deal, and the Iranians have gone the other way, and they've become more or less law-abiding, more terroristic in their actions. They are state-sponsored terrorists, no question about that. And there is a good case for saying, well, we need to toughen up all round against Iran. Prescribing the IRGC is a different problem. I mean, it is a practical issue as well as a sort of an ethical issue, because the IRGC is a state organ. It's not a terrorist group. It's not an independent group. It is a proper organ of the state, but behaves in very unacceptable and violent and terroristic ways. But if we prescribe that, then, as the Iranians say, well, we'll prescribe the CIA. And very quickly, we'll find ourselves in a situation where government organizations will be prescribed as terrorists by governments that just don't like what they do. We've got to be very careful about that. And the Foreign Office is very aware that if we rush to prescribe government organizations and government forces as terrorists, then we're opening the door to a whole series of unintended consequences. So we have to be careful.
Well, that was Professor Michael Clarke speaking to me just a little earlier.